Hello, good evening, and welcome back. HS2, go ahead, controversial and difficult, admits Boris Johnson. As far as any infrastructure plan goes, you've got two options. One is let the private companies go ahead, because then it will be profitable, and you can decide if it is worth doing. It can only be profitable if people think it is worth buying tickets for it, and if they do, then they like it, and it is worth doing. Second is go ahead with it completely or don't do it at all. That is to say, find the points you wish to get together. So you've got London, you've got Birmingham, you've got Manchester, you've got Leeds. Get your map of England, get a ruler, draw a straight line between them. If there are hills, tunnel through them. If there's water, bridge over them. If there are homes, buy them out. Why am I so ruthless in this? Well, it's very simple. The trains we have at the moment have their speed limits due to corners. If you try and build a high-speed train and still have corners in them, you're going to be subject to the same problems. And you might think, well, okay, we can get around the speed limits by banking the turns. Sure, up to a point, except if you break down on a turn, you've still got to be able to remain upright, and therefore you are limited to the amount of banking that you can have. Moreover, high-speed rail is very expensive to build, and if you wish to do this for environmental reasons, you cannot build that much rail, because if you factor in the rail that is required, as well as everything else for trains compared to planes, trains are worse for the environment than for planes, so you need to make this the shortest you can if you wish to appeal to any informed Green voter. Then again, if they're informed, they wouldn't be a Green voter, would they? So yes, of course it's controversial and difficult, because you have to be hardline with it. Say, we're not doing it, it's up to the private market. And if they go, it's not worth doing, then guess what? It's not worth doing. It is not for you to get involved with. And if you decide, well, it is worth doing, they can't see it, but we can, therefore we're going to force people to pay for it instead, then make it worthwhile. Straight line, go straight through. If you want to make this something to be memorable, as Boris Johnson seems to like infrastructure, then why not say straight line, London to Birmingham, to Manchester to Leeds, straight lines. That would be very memorable. Do that. Do it once, you don't have to fucking worry about it again. What about the M25? For cars? That's a real shit show, isn't it? They can't even get the bloody maintenance done on it, because it is used round the clock. Yeah, now they're limited to just 5 hours overnight. So it's a bloody shit show. So if you're going to do it right straight away, otherwise don't bother at all. So what's the blowback been? Well, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that the controversial HS2 high-speed rail link will be built. The first phase of the route will travel between London and Birmingham, with a second phase going to Manchester and Leeds. It has been a controversial and difficult decision, he said. The Prime Minister added he was going to appoint a full-time minister to oversee the project and criticised the HS2 company's management of the scheme. Government always takes longer and it does it in a more expensive way. Yes, thought, oh, it's going to open in 2026. No, what about 2028, 2031, because now the government's involved. He says, I cannot say that HS2 Limited has distinguished itself in the handling of local communities. The cost forecasts have exploded, but poor management to date has not detracted from the fundamental value of the project. The Prime Minister said that a series of measures would be taken to restore discipline to the programme. And that's fair enough. Yes, if you're going to do something on such a grand scale as this, you do need to be disciplined, and you do need to do it well. So what are all these curvy lines doing, even on a map as scaled out as this? They do not belong here. Supporters of HS2 say it will improve transport times, increase capacity, create jobs, which is bullshit, and rebalance the UK's economy. That is, if you look at Harry Hazlitt's economics in one lesson, for example, when he mentions building a bridge. If you go down the argument of saying, oh, well, it's good for building jobs at the time, well, then you might as well build any bridge anywhere. It's the same as the rail. You might as well build any rail link anywhere if it's just for the jobs during the time. Because what people don't see is, of course, the roads being built, the houses being built, NHS supporting if you wish for such things. Anything at all like that. You don't see that that has been neglected for the purpose of your dream of a bridge. On this time, a high-speed rail network. Is it that high speed? No, of course the fucking isn't. But we do have a high-speed rail world record, of course, the Flying Scotsman, that train of trains, class of trains, with its world record of over 130 miles an hour, 80 years ago. Yes, trains are running slower now than they were 80 years ago. Why is this? Because of speed restrictions. Why are the speed restrictions in place? Because of the rails and how they're built. And then now you've got built up areas. And you've got the people on the trains, you've got health and safety regulations, you've got curves in the track. Things like this limit the speed to speeds that they were about 100 years ago. So why are we at the point we were 100 years ago? It's because of all the bloody rules and regulations and curving tracks that you wish to repeat here. So no, you will have a high-speed rail line if you wish to continue with this train of thought. And that is exactly what you're doing. So will you get high-speed rail? No, you won't. The whole idea is, oh well, Europe's doing it. France and Germany, they're the main proponents, and now Italy's getting on board too. And obviously you've got the maglev in Germany, and China's doing so well because they're forcing people to pay for it again, the reappropriation of money. And Japan has done really bloody well with their Shinkansen and their bullet trains. That is why people use the trains instead of air travel. Still quite expensive over there, but nonetheless, people choose to do that because of the time spent in security, which again is a bloody waste of time. Have they foiled any terrorist plots? No, of course they fucking haven't. Are they going to make it any easier for us to travel? No, of course they're fucking not. But nonetheless, that's why people say the terrorists have won. That's why people want to go on the trains instead. And that's the idea of making those transport times shorter, because if we actually had more effective security at airports, which wouldn't take so long, we wouldn't need the trains to be on such a long journey, and it wouldn't be a problem. Because it isn't a green argument, it really isn't. The building of the tracks, if you wish to run the calculations for what is required for building those tracks, then you'll realise it is better to keep the airports. Funnily enough, having an airport one place, which is quite a small construction, and an airport another place with nothing in between, is better than having a train station on one side, a train station on the side, and a massive lot of hundreds of miles of rail in between them. Using the trains between them, having to build them and to replace them, is less efficient than having the two airports and using aircraft. Also why we can make them much cheaper. Funnily enough, cost is correlated to the environmental impact. But nonetheless, they say once it is built, journeys will be shorter. London to Birmingham travel times will be cut from 1 hour 21 minutes to 52 minutes, according to the Department for Transport. So, seeing as that's a government institution, we can't expect them to actually get anywhere near that. But nonetheless, even if we do, we could say 3/4 then. How about that? We'll cut it by 25%. Is it worth it for over 100 billion quid? Not really. Not really. Cut it down by a quarter. 100 billion. Nah. Are you really willing to spend 4 billion quid for every percent decrease in time of that half hour? Then, if you will. No, of course you're not. Because you're not fucking stupid. You want to spend 3 billion quid per minute? No, you don't. Of course you don't. Time is money, but if I was earning 3 billion quid a minute, I would not be doing this. And while it's being built, it is expected to create thousands of jobs and provide a stimulus to economic growth. That is not an argument. Otherwise, you might as well do that everywhere. You're saying government can spend better than people, which we know they can't. The first phase of the high-speed rail link between London and Birmingham was due to open at the end of 2026, but now it's between 2028 and 2031. Government always makes things more expensive and does them slower. So the second phase to Manchester and Leeds was due to open in 2032-2033, but that has been pushed back to 2035 to 2040. 8 years longer. Or for 50% longer. How ridiculous. Of course, the Tories probably not be in control for that long. So is that realistic? No, of course it isn't. Does Labour have a habit of cutting any investments into the country? Yes, of course it does. Otherwise we would have broken the sound barrier before the Americans and not 1 day later. Yep. 1 day for the Mars Plan 32. That's spiraling cost of the project has sparked a backlash. The cost set out in the 2015 budget was set at just under £56 billion, but one independent estimate puts the cost as high as £106 billion. Somebody even higher, but nonetheless, let's go with double. Is it going to stay at double till the end? No, of course it isn't. It's down to inflation, not just. But that's great, isn't it? Inflation at 3%. So if it's delayed by a year, that's going to cost another £3 billion. £3 billion in 1 year. Mr. Johnson added, "We will, in line with review, investigate the current cost to identify where savings can be made in phase 1 without a total redesign. We're seeing how bloody expensive it is to build your bloody track. It is cheaper to buy up the homes in the way and build a straight bloody line. So it's cheaper, it's more economically viable for you, it'll cut down the times, make it more profitable for you as well, and be more popular and be a marvel for the world, and maybe we can start to get back at the top of the world for our engineering insights to actually say this is the best line and we're going to go with it. So maybe do that instead of trying to work around people. You cannot win over these people. In fact, just as some proof here, because hey, we're all evidence based here, that if you go to what the Green Party has decided to say, when Caroline Lucas said HS2 would destroy or damage hundreds of important wildlife sites, areas of ancient woodland and local nature reserves. Yes, exactly. The plan is to remove the need for flying and therefore reduce the air pollutants, but are they happy with that? No, of course they're fucking not. They hate you, Boris Johnson. They really hate you. Nothing you can do can change their mind. They will always find something to hate you over, and because of that, if you try and appease them, you will lose the support of the people who can see clearly, and they will only hate you more because they will twist your action, they will twist your inaction, and nothing you can do will appease them. You cannot reason with these people. They are insane. So Jude Brimble, National Secretary of the GMB Trade Union, shouldn't listen to them at all, but let's see what bullshit they have to say, which represents HS2 workers, said the reality is that HS2 is happening and the government should get on with it. Fair enough, yeah, if it's happening, fucking do it. Thousands of skilled jobs depend on the project in construction and the supply chain. Oh yes, because we all know this is the only place where they could possibly get work, except we all know it of course fucking isn't, and this kind of argument is bullshit. Think of the people then that you're taking away from other jobs, the funding that you could get to other places, or better yet, not take from the people in the first place and allow them to create the work that they want and pay for things that they want instead of forcing them to pay for the things that they couldn't give a shit about. If you want to actually be a conservative government, then maybe do that. Let people decide what they want to spend their money on and not make them pay for something that they may never see, they may never use, and they may find abhorrent. It is not something for a conservative government to do. What the fuck are you playing at? So industry will applaud, yes, because you don't understand the consequences of your actions, you don't understand the things that can't be done because you're going after this instead. But because you can see rail, you can see a bridge, as Hasler would say, then you're fine with that because you don't see all the things that were not done because they decided to get on with this. So dig a little deeper, have a little think, and realise that there are many things that have been missed out upon because of this insane expenditure, which doesn't need to happen, because if there is a demand, it will be built. Allow people to actually build rail, and we will be able to get to the point which we were before the government intervened. Allow people to actually build that rail. Don't bog them down with regulations. Don't make the government the only one to do it. Don't bump up prices for the sake of these fucking unions. Allow people to work if they want to work, and allow people to build the rail if they want to build the rail. They have everyone's consent involved. Stop getting involved and let people actually live their own lives. You're a conservative government. If you believe in those values, and stop making people pay for things that they don't want to pay for, and let us get on with our lives.